Hello, Shawnee Hills Baptist Church family. It's Pastor Adam. I wanted to speak to you this morning and share with you an announcement that is very important and very pivotal in the life of our church and in the history of our church. The kind of announcement that doesn't happen very often in our church family, that's very important and could be a source of great joy and hope. In order to share that announcement, I want to express to you a little bit of history and understanding of why I'm about to share what I'm about to share. A few years ago, Pastor Dave began to share with us his intentions to, at some point down the road, retire. And it was the desire of the leadership team at the time, as it has been up to this day, that we provide a transition that is planned, that we as a church could see coming, as opposed to changing pastors through traumatic action. And so we began a process, a multi-phase plan of transition, and for years now we've been talking about it. Just to quickly review it, the first phase of that plan would be that before Pastor Dave would enter a retirement, the church family would make a decision about the next lead pastor. And so the goal was to prepare me and present me to the church family as the next lead pastor, and we did that. If approved, which it was, then phase one is complete. I would become the next lead pastor. And then phase two would be that the church family, as a congregation, would consider Pastor Dave as the next associate pastor. So if the congregation approved of that, then Pastor Dave and I would actually be switching roles. I would become the lead pastor, he would become the associate pastor. The congregation has to decide each one of those issues independently, so we put them into two phases. The third phase would be that once that transition was made, we would then begin searching for a new associate pastor who would serve longer term, and the congregation would get to know that person, would select that person. Once that new associate pastor has had time to settle into place and get adjusted and get to know us all as a family, and we get to know him, and the conditions are right, then Pastor Dave would begin to pass the baton and shift into a part-time mode. And then after things are settled once again, and we feel like the pastoral team is ready to go, then Pastor Dave would step into full-time retirement. Now, we months ago initiated phase one of that plan. And in the midst of that plan, we ran into the COVID crisis in which we were put under stay-at-home orders. And so it added some difficulty to our situation. But we felt that you as a congregation have known me well enough that you could make an informed decision about me as a candidate for lead pastor. And so you made that decision, and overwhelmingly so, you participated in that and had a strong affirmation vote. And so now I'm the lead pastor-elect, and on June 1st, I'll become the lead pastor. We also believe as a leadership team that in the weeks ahead of us, it's important to continue the second phase of that plan. Again, phase two being making a decision about Pastor Dave's role, since on June 1st, he'll no longer be the lead pastor, and Lord willing, would be the associate pastor. But you have to make that decision as a congregation. And since we really can't continue any of the other phases until we can actually be together as a church family, it wouldn't be reasonable to try to vote by proxy on a person you've not met. It's even more important that we decide as a church family about Pastor Dave and his role as an associate pastor, if that's what you want. We believe you know him well enough. You've heard him preach, you've heard him teach, you've experienced his leadership. We believe you can make a prayerful, informed decision. And so it's in light of that my announcement to you this day is that the leadership team unanimously recommends that David Culver be considered a candidate for the next associate pastor of Shawnee Hills Baptist Church, effective June 1st. Meaning we will present him to you over the course of the next few weeks so that you can make a decision by vote. And if you vote in the affirmative, then on June 1st, I become the lead pastor. That's already been decided. But if you vote affirmative on this motion, then he would become the associate pastor on the very same day. Now, just to review the constitutional process, we want to be faithful to our constitutional process. It's important to understand that the process for selecting an associate pastor is the same as a lead pastor, but the process for presenting an associate pastor is not the same. There are some differences. The selection process is the same. What I mean by that is that the congregation votes on all of its pastors. You decide who your pastors are going to be, whether they're a lead pastor or an associate or some other title. If they're a pastor, you as a congregation must decide. And 40% of you, at least a 40% quorum of the voting membership, must make that decision, and you must have 75% of that 40% quorum affirm the candidate in order for that candidate to receive a call to be a lead pastor or an associate pastor. So the selection process is the same. The presentation process is a little bit different, though. For a lead pastor in our Constitution, a pastoral search committee must be formed. They present a candidate to the leadership team. The leadership team must approve that candidate and then recommend that candidate to the congregation. And over the course of 2 weeks, a candidacy process unfolds in which that candidate is considered by the congregation, and then you place your vote. We just did that. With an associate pastor or any additional pastor in our Constitution, the presentation process is done a little bit differently. The lead pastor, or in my case, the lead pastor elect, recommends other pastors to the leadership team. The leadership team then investigates the recommendation, and then if they approve, then the leadership team recommends that person to the church family to consider as an associate pastor. And there's a 2-week period from the recommendation to the vote. Now, because of our unusual circumstances and our inability to gather physically, we're going to stretch that from 2 weeks to 4 weeks. We're going to give some extra time. And so the leadership team has met with Pastor Dave. I recommended him. They met with him. We've had a number of discussions about his role as an associate pastor and his fitness for that. And they've unanimously recommended him to you to consider to vote on him regarding being an associate pastor effective June 1st. I want to give you some important dates in terms of how we're going to vote as a congregation. It's going to be similar to what we did in the lead pastor vote. On April 29th, which is a Wednesday, you should receive, or we will begin to mail out to you, ballots. You'll receive in the mail a ballot. It'll be very similar to last time. You'll have a cover letter, there'll be a smaller envelope inside the mailing, and a ballot. You'll be able to vote on that ballot, place that in the envelope, and then you can mail that back to the church, 3490 Jasper Road in Jamestown, or you can go to the church building. The black drop box outside the church office has a slot on it. You can place it inside there, and those ballots will be collected. They will not be opened until the day of counting. But from April 29th to May 15th, that's a Friday, May 15th at 5 p.m., that will be the deadline for us to receive all ballots. So think of 5:15 at 5. May 15th at 5 p.m. The ballots that we've received by that point will then be opened by selected counters who will count those votes and will then report the results to the leadership team. And then on Sunday, May 17th, we will provide an announcement to you as to how you voted, what the results of that vote are. In the meantime, we want to provide a Q&A session for you. So we're going to record a Q&A session with Pastor Dave, myself, and Clint Cole, the chairman of the deacons. And we're going to publish that Q&A this next Sunday, April 26th, by video. And so we've collected some questions, and we want to share how we see his role being in the time ahead, and why we believe this is a good fit for the Shawnee Hills Baptist Church family and for the pastoral team. And so we want to share that Q&A video with you next week, knowing that in 4 weeks' time from today, the votes will have been cast, and we will be announcing the results. In the meantime as well, Pastor Dave wants you to know that he is making himself available to you by phone or email or text if you have questions that you would like to share with him or talk with him about more personally. I want to make myself available to you because you might have questions that are about Pastor Dave's role, but maybe it's a question that I have to answer because it's coming from the future lead pastor. So I want to make myself available to you as well by email, phone, or text. Happy to talk with you, excited to talk with you about how Pastor Dave can be a great help in the future here at Shawnee Hills Baptist Church. So I want to share that announcement with you. I wanted to give those details to you and ask you to pray right now and anticipate that beginning April 29th, the mailings will go out and you should be receiving ballots shortly thereafter. I am fully persuaded that David Culver will be an effective associate pastor, and he will be a special help to me. And now more than ever, because on June 1st, I'm going to need help. We're not going to be bringing on a new pastor that we don't know, and how grateful we are that God allowed us to set these plans years ago, and the timing of it, though awkward to us, it's proving to be very effective. That we knew this decision was coming. You knew that we would be presenting this decision to you, and I look forward to serving with him in this way, and I ask for you to prayerfully consider that as well. So God bless you. Be anticipating the mailbox if you are a voting member, and be praying for all of us that God will help us to make a decision that pleases him. Take care.